Welcome back to Visionary Voices, where we talk with IT leaders, entrepreneurs, and technology executives about their journey and where they see technology taking us in the future. In this episode, we're joined by Craig Walker, founder and chief executive of Dialpad. Craig's a serial entrepreneur, having founded a number of technology companies, some of which were acquired by the likes of Google and Yahoo. Craig served for several years as a senior executive at Google. As I mentioned, Craig's current venture is Dialpad. Welcome, Craig.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Thanks for joining us. So before we jump into your background and experiences, can you give us an idea of what Dialpad's about? What are you guys trying to accomplish in the marketplace?
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me that opportunity. So when we started Dialpad, geez, now 14 years ago, the world of communications, particularly for businesses, was pretty darn bad. And for a lot of them, it still is really bad. And we had built it previously. I had been at Google working on the Google Voice product, and we had built this really robust, delightful, cloud-based, super modern consumer communications service.
Mhm.
And we wanted to take all that learning and go apply it to this world of how do we make businesses better. And man, when I was working at Google, I actually had like a Nortel desk phone on my desk, and I'm like, one, it took up a ton of space. Two, like my dad would feel comfortable with it. I'd never used it, and it had all these buttons and lights and things that I was supposed to memorize. Anyhow, so realized there's got to be a way we can make business better by taking everything we learned here and go solve the problems of just business communications that just seems so hideously backwards. And along the way, we attacked, what are the problems in contact centers? How do we make their lives easier? How do we make it more productive? How do we add messaging and how do we have it all in one unified platform and things like that? And then 6 years ago, we added real-time AI in 2018 to our contact center product. And that product now it understands conversations with customers. It suggests right answers. It coaches in real time. It summarizes what happened. It enters all those notes and purpose and outcomes into the various ticketing or CRM systems. And so basically it has evolved into this AI powered communications intelligence platform that understands every interaction and helpfully makes your sellers, your support agents, your recruiters, your coworkers just, working amongst themselves so much more productive by having a single tool to do it all than having these insights from the real-time AI that's making each one of those better.
Right, right. So you guys were really early in implementing AI 6 years ago.
Really
For
early.
voice communications was very early. Yeah.
Right, and for real-time voice communication. So it's
Right.
not just, hey, record a conversation and then a couple hours later you're going to get a transcript with some analysis of it. In real time, it's listening and saying, okay, here's the sentiment of this call, or here is an alert to a supervisor of please get involved. Something's going horribly wrong
Right.
right now. Um, and we accumulated during that time, like vast amounts of conversations and training data for our AI engines on, okay, what comes next, what's the most appropriate response in this situation, things like that. And so we were ideally situated when generative AI came around to take these billions and billions of minutes of training data and build our own large language model to that is entirely built on just long form business conversations. So you're not
Mm.
getting any internet hallucinations or anything like that. It's
Right.
ideally trained on now how do we make this even more conversational? How can we do recaps and what were the action items and what's the follow up and all these other things that generative AI is really good for. And frankly, since we invested 6 years ago, we now have a team when the Gen AI thing burst on the scene last spring and everyone had to have it and changed all their names and logos and stuff. We actually had a team of 70 plus full-time AI folks working on this, and we had this proprietary data set to give us a real advantage in how to push the industry forward.
Right, right. Sounds like a fantastic journey over the last 14 years or so. So I think you've alluded to the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it directly. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur? What was your journey like, and how'd you
Mm,
get to where you are today?
good question. So I had gone to undergrad at Berkeley, got my MBA at Georgetown, went back to Berkeley and got my law degree. And I was working in Palo Alto as a lawyer in one of the top firms that was representing all the best venture capitalists, all the best companies, all the best investment banks. And you really got this front row seat. And this was 1995.
Mm,
You get this front row seat of, Netscape just went public. The internet's coming on the scene. The world is dramatically changing. And I love being super close to the action, but as the lawyer at the table, you weren't necessarily the guy making the decisions. You were making
right,
them actually come to fruition. And so I always had this goal to get on the other side of the table. And one of my clients at the firm was starting a telecom focused venture fund coming out of the 1996 Deregulation Act that did a bunch of things and allowed CLECs and other things to exist. Um, and so I left the law firm and went and joined him in this venture fund. So we were investing in infra, like internet infrastructure type companies and all the crazy goodness that was happening in the Silicon Valley in the late 90s. So it was just like perfect, perfect opportunity to see the whole world as a lawyer, perfect opportunity to then go apply that as an investor. And then in 2001, one of our companies, the internet bubble burst. One of our companies was in trouble, and they put me in as an interim CEO. It happened to be a voice over IP company, and from that point on, I never left. I like kicked off a 24-year career in communications and innovative, cloud-based technologies, and it's just been a weird ride. I don't know if I would have never mapped it out that way. I never saw it coming,
right.
but I've loved every minute of it.
Right. Combination of being in the right place, right time, having the right skill set, and being the right person for the job. That's a fantastic story. Now it's easy for some of our viewers to say, this guy was in Silicon Valley. He was in the midst of all of this stuff. It must have been much easier for someone like yourself, Craig, to start a company than someone who doesn't have those same environmentals, right? Well, but I'm sure you faced some challenges. Can you describe some of the challenges that you faced over the years,
Oh,
and how you overcame them?
yeah, for sure. Well, to the first part of the question, there are environmental advantages. It's like if you want to write a screenplay and turn it into a movie, you're probably better off doing that in Hollywood than in Des
Sure.
Moines, right?
Hmm.
Um, but that doesn't mean it's easy to write a screenplay and turn it into a movie. Similarly, that
Absolutely.
doesn't mean having an idea and getting it funded and turning it into a successful business
Yep.
is easy, even if you happen to be in the right place. So I would say like the greatest learning and opportunity to develop kind of like my approach was being put in as CEO in the worst possible economy, September of 2001,
Mm-hmm.
for a company that had a cool technology and a lot of promise, but zero revenue and had been burning money like a house on fire and was going to go out of business. And somehow or another, we were able to turn that around, clean it up, make it profitable. Um, and we had to do that with an absolute skeleton crew of people. We had to do it without any outside, investor going to come in and give you a parachute of just another pile of cash.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, 2001, I remember it like it was yesterday because I lived through it. But for a lot of people, that's distant memory, or they weren't even alive at that time. But there was no venture funding happening. There was companies closing all over the Silicon Valley. The
Hmm.
engineers who used to be, kings of the universe and would get, BMWs as signing bonuses, now were out of work and, more than willing to to try anything to stay employed. Um, so I think that kind of trial by fire, we tried to raise money. Like we got really close with a couple firms. but probably, saw 50, 60 different firms, different pitches, different partners, never got over the hump, and then finally actually found an individual in Seoul, Korea, of all things, who wrote us a $5 million check, and that was kind of like the catalyst we needed to be able to clean up a bunch of stuff and kind of rearrange things to go forward. And then from there, the economy turned. We got bought by Yahoo, and kind of you're off to the races.
That is an amazing story. I was in telecom during that same period. I refer to it as the nuclear winter of telecommunications. People who
Right.
didn't experience that have no idea how difficult it was to be a startup or a mid-level company during that time. You were losing customers and losing investors at a precipitous rate. So congratulations on turning that around.
Survival.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna. Normally, we ask the entrepreneurs that we have on this podcast, what do they see in the next 5 to 10 years? I have a feeling I know your answer to this, but I'm still gonna ask the question: what do you see in the next 5 or 10 years as the technology development that you think is really going to change the way we operate?
Yeah. So I'm going to attack it from our Dialpad perspective. We have an AI powered communications uh, platform, right? And so it is our communications intelligence platform. And what that means is every conversation, the system can derive the intelligence out of that conversation, and it can do it in real time. So the way we've architected it is we now have specific models for specific roles that exist in every single organization. So if you're a seller, we have an entirely different model around what a sales conversation looks like. And does your sales company use a playbook? Well, if they do, we show you that playbook on the screen, and we'll check it off when you ask the questions. We'll summarize the answers to those questions. We'll log them all into the right thing, or the right CRM. And then we also have a separate model for support. If you're in support, it's going to be different. And separate model for recruiting. Recruiting's a little different from that too. But if you think about what are the three roles that every business in the world has, one, you have to hire people, so recruiting. Two, you have to sell a product or a service, so sales. And if you have customers, you will need to support your customers. So those three roles exist everywhere. And so we continue to refine specific models for each of those roles. But over the next even quicker than 5 years, we're going to use all that training data we have to then look at build industry specific versions of each one of those, because sales in a real estate transaction is going to look a little bit different from sales in medical devices, and support for for healthcare is going to be different from support for I don't know, your lawnmower. Like they're all going to be specific, and the words they use are in different industries mean different things.
Sure.
And if I'm in healthcare, if someone's talking to someone on the phone and telling me how much pain they're in and how uncomfortable they are, us understanding those words in another context would say, whoa, that is a really negative call because this guy's complaining. In a
Right.
healthcare context, it's not. He's literally just describing the symptoms. So it's going to get so much more precise
Mm,
based on the role and the industry. And our whole vision is we want to make your employees, your people better. And if your employees are better at their job and they're giving better answers, they're making customers happier, and they take less time to ramp up, and it take less time to answer a question, and you have a higher CSAT, your customers are not going to churn, and they're going to actually buy more. That just helps everyone. And if you can
yeah.
get all those benefits just by using a tool that has that built into the core of it, God bless you. And I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a million other things that can happen over the next 5 to 10 years. I am an inch wide and a mile deep, so I only look at the world through the prism of Dialpad.
Fair enough. And that's an amazing vision, by the way. So, and kind of pivoting a little bit, starting to wrap up this conversation, if there's someone out there, young person, person who is sort of uh, anxious in their career and looking to start something on their own, looking to be an entrepreneur themselves, what are the one or two pieces of advice that you would give that person, that they needed to be sure of before they went off and launched something on their own?
Yeah, so I'd say one, it's the barriers to entry or the startup costs have never been lower, right? Because you
Mhm.
can just set up an account with Google Cloud or AWS, and you can come up with ideas. You can find someone on any of these like remote job boards to like help you with design or do stuff. So like there's ways to do it in a very, very scrappy, low cost way. So the barriers to entry are lower. Um, so one, that's great. And then if you come up with something amazing, God bless you, you're off to the races. Um, Generally, when I talk to people about, what does it take to start this, the realization that the idea is not the secret. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably no idea you can think of that someone else hasn't already thought of. It's
Mhm.
the execution of the idea. And the execution is really where you separate the wheat from the chaff. And so, and may, a lot of people may think your idea is crazy, and maybe that's why no one's done it in the past. But nothing's new generally, unless you're really really out on the edge. Um, but you do need to understand, what your strengths are. Like I'm a I'm like a product guy in that I know what I want it to do, but I'm not an engineer. Like I have no idea how to get things to do that. But I've always partnered with really, really strong engineering partners or CTO or co-founders. And together I can lay out the vision of like, look, I know there's a way to get this to happen. You figure out how to do it.
Right.
And it's been pretty great. And if you're starting a company from scratch, you need kind of like that Jobs and Wozniak combination.
Mhm.
You need someone who can sell it and pitch it and see what it wants to be, and you have someone else who's going to actually make that happen.
Right.
And they're rarely the same person. So find a complementary resource, realize that you're not, like I hear these first time entrepreneurs like, should I ask a venture capitalist to sign an NDA? I'm like, absolutely not. They're going to laugh you out of the room. There's no way they're going to sign it. And they've probably seen someone through their doors in the last 3 months with your exact same idea.
Mhm.
So don't worry about that. The other thing I'd say is if you're if you're not if you haven't done it before and you don't have a pedigree and people aren't just going to give you money to go start it, like you need to get some real quick traction and you need to get some real um like some like minimum viable product out there, because like if you don't have a track record, the only thing that an investor is going to believe in is seeing actual traction. So it's like one of those. But if you've been successful, if you've been at a great company that grew quite a bit and is kind of famous, gives you a little bit of a halo effect.
Sure.
But if you're absolutely just starting with an idea, figure out a way to get a MVP out the door and learn from it, and really kind of just go download the, kind of like the playbook that Y Combinator uses. They're all about quick iteration, MVP, show that people like it, and then you can actually go build on that.
Awesome conversation, Craig. I appreciate your insights. We're looking forward for more great things from Dialpad. I just really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and experiences with our audience. Thanks very much, and good luck to you. Take care.
Great. Hey, thank you so much.